How do we balance leadership and excellence with humility? The workplace creates challenges for us all. We'll talk about them today, so stay with us as we strive to be walking worthy. Well, welcome and thanks for joining us on the Walking Worthy podcast. I'm Mary Lowman.
And I'm Lisa Bishop.
And we hope you are encouraged as you walk worthy in the workplace and in life. Well, on this episode, Lisa, we're going to talk about some questions that have been submitted to us from our listeners, and these are not necessarily easy ones.
Yeah, they're not. Actually, you guys have been great at sending questions in, and you have given us a run for our money.
I think so. So we might as well jump in here. The first one is, how do I show humility but not become a doormat?
Yeah, it's really interesting because as I was thinking about that question, I Googled something along the lines of that question. And it's interesting because it came up in the search as a question that women mostly ask.
Exactly.
That was so wild. Like literally as I was reading some of the responses that Google came up with, and I even Googled from a Christian perspective, it all seem to be coming from a female perspective. Like men don't really deal with this as much.
Well, that's because it's very acceptable for men to be aggressive and assertive, but a woman, oh, no, this is not what a woman's supposed to be. Don't you find that attitude is still prevalent?
Oh, no, I definitely have been pinned as someone who has a little bit of a stronger personality. And as a female, I definitely have experienced that is less acceptable. Now, I've had to personally just put myself in check and make sure that I am exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit, like gentleness and gracefulness, et cetera. But there is something about women being kind of pegged as differently if we assert ourselves in any way. So I can see how it could be difficult to be seen as someone that's humble, but also not be seen as someone who's a doormat too.
But if you look at women in the Bible, I always think of Deborah.
Yeah.
I mean, Deborah
awesome.
was so far ahead of her time. She led the whole army into battle.
She did.
She was incredible.
And she wasn't a wimp about it. I mean, she definitely had authority, God-given authority.
Exactly.
And I think that from what we read about her, she used her God-given authority for the glory of God. So I think, whenever we're talking about this topic, first of all, it's what's my attitude of heart?
Exactly.
Like, what's my position of heart? Am I for the glory of God or am I for the glory of myself? So I think that's a good place to start.
I do too. And, when you read about that ideal woman in Proverbs 31, she certainly was a strong, assertive woman. She couldn't do all the things she did and be a wimpy woman, could she?
No, she couldn't.
I don't think there's anything in Scripture that says we have to be doormats. Women are men, and yet we are supposed to be humble. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah. The first thing I was thinking about is to ask for feedback. I know that sounds a little bit funny, but when we're working on the job and we're thinking maybe I'm being overlooked for what I'm doing or what I'm accomplishing, and it's all with a good attitude of heart, I think asking for feedback is a good place to start, and not asking for it in a way that we're kind of setting someone up to tell us all the good things that we do. But sometimes if we go into our boss or maybe someone on our team and we ask for genuine feedback, that could help alert people to what we are doing and the results we're accomplishing. And also be open, if someone gives us feedback and says, oh, I think you did this really well, or this made a huge contribution, and this is maybe something that you could have done a little bit differently, that we're open to that too. But I think when we genuinely ask for feedback, we'll grow. And then we're also kind of putting that other person in a place where they are reflecting on our work and
That's true.
Noticing. Does that make sense?
It does. And then again, we shouldn't hesitate at times to express or to state what we have accomplished, what we've done. I've been helping a young woman who's applying for a new job, and she's so excited about it, but she feels, overwhelmed. And I said, no, you tell them what you've done. You don't have to say it with pride. You say, I'm just so thankful I've been able to do this, and this, and how you've been successful, because you have. Mm-hmm. And it's all of God.
Right.
And you can acknowledge that, but you don't have to pretend that you can't do anything or you've done nothing if by God's grace you have, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the other thing that comes to mind is, are we modeling calling other people out for their contribution? So as much as we want to be recognized for the work that we're doing, making sure that we're actually that person who's giving credit to other people where it's due as well. So we're helping to contribute to a culture that actually acknowledges when people are doing a good job.
Yeah, exactly. And don't you think sometimes the problem is we misunderstand what real humility is? Humility is not, oh, not me, poor me. Humility is not, oh, I didn't do that. Humility is just recognizing who you are in comparison to who God is. Humility is being teachable. That's kind of what you said. Humility is just giving God the glory. And you can be truly humble and still be very confident and assertive when necessary.
Yeah, humility, as was mentioned earlier, is not about lacking confidence or pretending that we haven't done anything well. Again, I think it's an attitude of heart that's really important.
Yeah. It always goes back to that, doesn't it? You got to start with, I remember once voicing my opinion very strongly in a meeting and speaking up very assertively because I was just so enraged, that they were wrong and I was right. And, my assertions were true, but my timing and my attitude and my tone of voice was all wrong. So it didn't do any good.
Yeah.
It just made things worse.
It reminds me of, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be solely pleasing to you, O Lord. And so, again, we, in everything in life, we ask, do I have the right position, the right attitude of heart? So not just in this question, but I think all of life, it's a good question to filter our behavior and our words and our thoughts and our actions through.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we got that problem all figured out, right?
Partially.
Let's move on. This is similar, but I thought it was a good one. How can I advocate for myself without being boastful? It's similar to the one we just covered. But how can, in the business world particularly, a woman advocate for herself? Men do this all the time, pretty easily. Why are we reluctant to do this?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the stereotype and the stigma that women have that makes it challenging. But as far as advocating for ourselves, I think it's similar to the conversation that we just had, that we, with humility, again, not with a wimpiness or shrinking backness, but with humility, just say, hey, I worked really hard on this particular project, and I'm wondering if you noticed, or I'm wondering what impact it made, or if you see that it added value. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier. I'm asking for feedback as well. And sometimes people just are so, I think, caught up in what they're doing or so distracted that I don't know that cultures are generally trained to be aware and observe what other people are doing well and do credit. I think we're also focused on ourselves.
Isn't that true?
And we're also distracted. And so, again, I think it would be totally okay to say, hey, to our manager or boss, I really worked hard on this project, and I'm wondering if you can give me a little bit of feedback, and I'm wondering if it made an impact towards the overall goal.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in that. And not being afraid to take a stand and say, no, I don't think that's right. I think this is right. When you really believe it, again, and the way you do it and the way you say it makes a difference. But we don't need to be intimidated.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, too, is, I don't know, it may feel a little bit outside of our comfort zones, but to say, I put a lot of work into this project, and I know the team has, and I'm so grateful for all that we've accomplished. And if I'm honest, I feel like a little overlooked. I really haven't been noticed or acknowledged for the time and effort that I put into it. And so I know it sounds like, ooh, can I really say that to someone? But sometimes I think it's okay to be honest. And again, with the attitude or position of heart, to say, hey, I really invested a lot of time. And I don't know that anybody really noticed. And I'm not looking for fanfare or whatever the case is, but I am looking to know, like, am I on the right track?
Yeah.
Am I adding value? Because that's really important to me to add value.
Yeah. And when you were talking about that, I was thinking, what a wonderful characteristic for us as believers in the marketplace, for us to really be aware of what other people are doing and give them the feedback that we long for. I mean, it's really a wonderful opportunity we have, since it doesn't happen a lot. And if it's one of our characteristics, I mean, that's Jesus in us, right? Reaching out and helping people. Encouragers are so rare.
Yes. And that we do it genuinely, and that we do it publicly.
Yeah.
And again, I really think it's a miss for people. It's not even on people's radar.
I know.
And so if we're coming into this not from a selfish perspective, but from a, hey, I really want to be a part of creating a culture where we're acknowledging one another, we all love to be encouraged.
Yep.
And when we're overlooked, it can be deflating. I think there are even studies that have been done that when people are acknowledged genuinely and encouraged, like, that is a better thing than money. I mean, oftentimes people just want to be recognized. So again, to your point, is that which I desire other people to be, or the environment. Like, how can I contribute to an environment that I think would be beneficial for everyone. And so the next time you're in a meeting or you're on a Zoom call, genuinely call out one or two people and be really specific and say, hey, I just want to really acknowledge Jim for X, Y, and Z on this project and the massive impact it made for our clients. And be specific, be sincere, be genuine, and you know what? Watch the culture shift.
I think it could happen. I think of the old 1-minute manager rule: catch your people doing something right and tell them. I mean, it's so simple to do, and yet so few people really focus on it. We're just, as you said, we're just wrapped up in what we've got to do today, and I've got to get all this stuff done, and we just don't notice other people.
Yep. And what a way to stand out in the workplace by encouraging another person. I don't know of there are a lot of great ways, but I don't know of a better way than to be an encourager for those around us.
I think of what Jesus said: it's more blessed to give than receive. I think it's more blessed to give encouragement even than to receive it, because how valuable that is. It can make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah.
Really. Just simple words.
And I think of 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Now it's talking about believers encouraging one another in their faith, but it's encourage one another daily. And we can apply that to this situation or other situations in life. So, look for ways to encourage other people and to build other people up.
It would be a good daily prayer. Lord, today, show me who you want me to encourage. Just go into your day with that thought in your mind. I'm going to find somebody to encourage today. I think we'd find somebody most every day, don't you?
I think that would be the case, and that encouragement, it begets encouragement. Like, if we add value and encouragement into someone's day, there's probably a high probability that person is then going to be spurred on to encourage. So it's going to have a ripple effect, which is really cool.
I think so. That we can be culture changers.
That's right.
Amen.
That's right.
For Jesus.
Yes.
Well, I think that was a good discussion.
I do too.
We really appreciate hearing from you, and any questions you guys out there want to send us, we'll do our best to take them on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you send your questions in, it causes me to think too. So I think we're growing and iron sharpening iron together.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining us today for our Walk Worthy podcast.